Hi, I'm Dan Handelman, and we're back to part 2 of the 16th Busiversary Flying Focus Video Collective's annual retrospective of our weekly series here on Portland Community Media.
Flying Focus, as you may have seen from our earlier clips in part 1, is focused on content over style. We're activists using video as a tool for social change, voicing the voiceless. We happened to pick up camcorders and start taping lectures, forums, protests, and other content regarding peace and social justice issues starting in 1991. We've had over 100 people working with us, producing our programs over the years, and you can do it too.
So you should grab a pen and some paper and write down our contact information, which you can see now on the screen, and it's going to come up a few more times during the show.
We're glad to be out here with a regular weekly series that allows people to talk in more than just sound bites as an important issue. Even when the mainstream media does cover these topics, they usually tell the story from the top-down perspective. What we're trying to do is voice the grassroots perspective, a little different.
So if you like what you see, be sure to contact your cable company and anybody who will listen, because cable access is consistently under threat of disappearing. The cable company would much rather have commercial programming on their channels than seeing us.
Thanks for watching. Don't let us be the only ones producing. You can do it too.
So yeah, I'm Dan, and I'm here with Yvonne.
Hi.
And Yvonne worked on 2 programs about a trip to Peru.
Yeah, there's a garbage dump outside Lima, Peru, called Las Lomas de Caraballo. And I work with the child workers, or volunteer with the child workers and with women and in general. They have no running water there. So this show is about the children taking a declaration to the mayor of Caraballo, asking him for clean running water. And it shows how they learn to be nature, like trees and animals and the waves and water, and they do a street theater, very colorful street theater, going to the mayor's office to give the declaration. This is Las Lomas de Caraballo. Caraballo is where over 100,000 people live in poverty. And Las Lomas is where all the garbage from Lima, Peru, is taken, 600 tons a month. And child workers, rummage around the garbage to find things to sell so that they can eat. And here is the actress from Santiago's theatrical group that works with Centro Processo, and she's teaching these girls to be plants and trees for the parade when we go to the mayor to ask for water. So here is the actual parade. It's on the other side of Caraballo, where the mayor's office is. The kids and food and some mothers, and we all got into a bus and came here. There's that actress again.
So that was mostly about water in Peru, and this one's about peace, justice, and animal rights in Peru. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the NGO that I work with, the Peruvian NGO, non-governmental organization, Centro Processo Social, has been working many years with the child workers in Las Lomas de Caraballo. And this shows you the conditions that they are under there. The soil is always contaminated, and also they want their dog. There's so many wild dogs or stray dogs, and they have dogs, and these dogs have mange, they have fleas, they have lice. There has been a concerted effort in the last year of getting the media involved to show Lima what is happening to the children that live on the outskirts of Lima and in Las Lomas de Caraballo, where they work going through the garbage. And there you can see the water barrels outside this nicely painted little house. And this dog has mange. And like the children, the dogs are covered in lice and fleas, and this little one's itching. We're still in the University of Engineering in the street, and there's 2 student vets that have come to see to the 5 puppies. This is Cholito, a puppy that I brought back to Portland, Oregon. And here we are in Irving Park, and there's Cholito having fun. He's a healthy dog now. He has no fleas, lice, worms in his stomach, and loves to play.
PC Peri back again with Barb, and we're talking about new clips. Barb's been a long-time activist with Flying Focus Video Collective. Here's Barb.
Thanks, PC. This next program is about Lisa Shannon, a local Portland woman who caught an episode of Oprah talking about issues in the Congo.
Democratic Republic of Congo.
Right, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the genocide that was been happening over there. Mm-hmm. And she was so horrified by this that she started runs through Forest Park
as a fundraiser.
As a fundraiser for the women of the Congo. Mm-hmm. And the thing that a lot of Americans are not aware of is that the reason for this genocide is that everyone wants the minerals in the DCR. And
such as the diamonds and
the diamonds, but also
titanium.
the minerals that are used to make the chips and in computers and cell phones.
That's right.
So next time you're using your cell phone, think about these women in the Congo.
It's her job to travel around the world and cover really horrific stories. But she says in this video that to her, she thinks it's probably the worst place on earth and the most ignored. I felt a situation this extreme deserved some sort of extreme response from me. It just does not sit well with me to just let this lie and say, oh, you know, isn't that too bad? So I decided that I would run the entire length of the Portland's Wildwood Trail in order to raise money to sponsor women in the Congo. At the time I started, well, first of all, when I decided to do that, I thought it was only 24 miles long. Quickly figured out that it's 30 miles long, just over 30 miles, but it felt more appropriate to me. Actually, it felt better to me that it was longer than a marathon, because the situation is so extreme. It just felt right. So I was a pretty average runner, about 5 miles, 5 days a week. Got into it, and as some of you may have read in an article in the paper several years ago, I tried to train for a marathon, and I went on my first 14-mile training run with a friend, and after 10 miles we called a cab to drive us back to the car. So I wasn't a very hardcore runner at all. I gave up the marathon training back then. I've been training for 6 months now, and it's been hard. Trail running is very challenging. In the spring it was really wet, really muddy, which is hard to run through. I've lost most of my toenails, they're growing back now. Swallowed a lot of spiders, had really painful runs, but my motivation has just been so clear with this. You know, women can't call a cab to leave the war zone.
So I feel like we can really, I feel very hopeful, and I feel like anything is possible, even for women in the Congo.
And we worked on this next show together as well, right?
That's right, and this one was Women's Equality Day.
Right, commemorating women's right to vote,
right.
Finally.
And we did this, how? Do you remember?
Right, it was an event downtown with the Clothesline Project and the founder of the Clothesline Project.
Oh, right. She said some words, and then Patricia Barrera.
And Georgia Pinkle.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good involvement.
There are so many. In fact, they're not all here that the Portland Clothesline has had over the years. There's hundreds more elsewhere.
Yeah, no, she's.
I recently read an article by a biologist that's basically saying Descartes and Darwin got it wrong. The universe is not a machine that we can understand and take apart and put it back together. That survival of the fittest is not what determines what lasts. Cooperation is survival. Maybe we should just talk to the women more and listen to the women for a change.
Free at last, I broke the chains at last. Don't hurt the children. No longer a victim. And the peace sign.
Because actually what brought me into the work is I have a number of friends who are Wampanoag, which are the native peoples of Cape Cod, and one of them is a linguist who is reclaiming their language. And she shared with me that the word for rape does not exist in her language or any of the other Eastern tribes. And because it didn't exist because there was no cultural context for that word. It was unknown and unheard of. So since her great-grandmother lived in a culture that didn't know what rape was, it seemed to me that that would be a great place for our to work, because we have to have that vision. We can't get to a place if we don't vision where it is. Sure. And we have to be able to vision that it's possible. Mm-hmm. So since her great-grandmother lived there, that vision is possible.
Molested as a child, raped as an adult, healed by my own power.
This clip is about the Animal Rights Law Conference that we taped at Lewis and Clark, but it had a different touch to it. Do you remember what that was, Barb?
Yeah, this is very interesting. This is Jim Mason, an attorney, talking about the importance of animals to the development of the human brain.
Very different.
Very different from just basic animal rights, because he acknowledges that animals do have intrinsic rights and intrinsic value of their own.
But they have an effect on us.
They have a very strong effect on the development of the human brain.
Right.
Yeah, so he talks about that a little here.
Our prevailing dominionist worldview may block our understanding of this, because we are so used to thinking of animals as important to us only in the economic sense, for food, for materials, for work, and lately as scientific tools. And human superiority, our culture tells us, gives us entitlements over lower animals. Ironically and tragically, we do not recognize animals' importance to those very capacities, mind, speech, and intelligence, on which we base our claims of superiority. What evolved in the human mind was not simply intelligence, but a developmental process. Genetics sets down the equipment, the hardware, the brain, the nervous system, and the organs, but it does not complete the process. Take vision, for example, and this is Shepard's vivisector idea. Put a patch over the eye of a newborn animal, and it cannot, in the absence of light, develop those final nerve connections, and that animal remains blind even after the patch is removed. Similarly, the human mind or the human brain needs animal types to help it make the connections that put the mind and the external world in order. Animal types, according to Shepard, are a necessary ingredient in the mind's development process, like that light shining on the eye of a newborn. Second point, in producing the human brain, natural selection did not turn out an organ that could assimilate a complex world much like the stomach digesting food. Instead, natural selection produced a linking device, one that takes quote-unquote advice on types, categories, and the order of things from the types, categories, and order of things in the living world. The clever brain used the order of plants and animals in the world as a master model. To have done it differently would have required vastly more information storage of DNA and a cumbersome mass of connections and tissues. In other words, we don't come into the world with a full deck. We have to print it or imprint it ourselves.
We're going to talk about another lawyer. Different subject, though. This is an attorney who is What?
This is Lynne Stewart,
Right.
a 67-year-old grandmother from New York,
Right.
an attorney, who was defending an opposition leader from Egypt, known as...
The blind cleric.
Right, the blind
The
cleric.
audacity of her.
Right. And for doing that, the U.S. government prosecuted her and tried to put her away for 30 years. She talks here some about the torture that's used these days in U.S. prisons.
At any rate, these defense lawyers made a novel motion. They said basically, because our client has been tortured, he cannot aid in his own defense. He cannot help us to defend him. He cannot appreciate the gravity of what is being brought against him. He was tortured, and now that government which perpetrated the torture should not be permitted to bring these charges. The charges should be dismissed. They did lose this motion, I am sorry to say, but in the course of losing it, they certainly made it very clear to all of us what a lot of us have known to be going on in U.S. jails for a long, long time, and that is systematic torture, not done with the rubber hoses the way we used to see it in the old crime movies, but by isolation, by psychological techniques. They blurred our politics by saying, well, see, she speaks out against America. She says that the parts of America that are racist, that are sexist, that are part of the capitalist imperialism should be destroyed. And he says that too, so you see they are united. But you see, we weren't united. We had a spirited discussion about this and the means and how and where we were different. And I tell you, the man was absolutely charismatic and brilliant when I first knew him. The last time I saw him, he was greatly diminished. He was not the same person anymore. He was a hollow man at that point. There's lots to do, that's for sure. We are the grassroots, and agitate, agitate, resist, resist. I cannot urge it more strongly. And when we get discouraged, I just want to say that to everyone here. In '55, when they were rounding up communists for national security, we never thought the 60s were coming, but come they did. And so we have to think they're coming again.
Hi, I'm Dan again. One topic we've returned to over and over again on this show is police accountability. I've attended and videotaped nearly every police review board meeting since 1992 that's been held in Portland. I usually don't produce programs because much of what the Citizen Review Committee does is talk about their own protocols, and when they actually do hear an appeal of police misconduct, the process is so confusing that I have to get on camera on screen and explain to the audience what's going on. In this show, there's a man who asked that his identity be protected on TV, and he's complaining about Officer Jason Francis coming to his apartment, taking him to detox wrongfully, hiding his weapon and not telling where it was, and stopping on the way to detox for a cup of coffee.
My final allegation against Officer Francis for stopping for coffee while in transport. After Officer Francis and Officer B were done inside my residence, Officer Francis got into the patrol car and we proceeded to be en route to what I thought was going to be detox. Without any form of explanation, I found myself in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven store. In reports, Officer Francis justifies the stop that he needed to, quote, use the restroom, and that Officer B would watch over me while the task was completed. After exiting the 7-Eleven store, I noticed that Officer Francis had in his hand a cup of coffee.
Coffee to me is what kind of helps me get through the job. It really does. It perks me up, and this cup of black coffee was not a leisurely, enjoyable, socializing with my cop buddies cup of coffee. This was just grabbing a quick cup, going out the door. I understand the appellant was very offended by that, but in the same token, if everything I do on the job revolves around what someone's feelings are in the backseat of my car while they're screaming at me, yelling at me, and being very intoxicated and hostile with me, it'd be very difficult for me to do my job.
I vote to affirm. I can understand the bathroom break for personal reasons. Getting a cup of coffee was a stupid move.
I affirm the way it was handled. I do think that officers need to be able to take care of their physiological needs in order to perform their jobs. In terms of the coffee, it seems like it had become a sort of biochemical brain habit for the officer.
I'm going to vote to affirm.
I vote yes. I vote to affirm or yes.
I challenge the findings. That's my vote. You have an officer who said he purchased it. You have a rule that says not engage in personal activities, coffee, etc.
What about no?
It seems like only 2 members of the review board actually seem to understand that the allegation was that he stopped for coffee, which is against the directive.
And if that wasn't clear, the vote on that allegation was 5-2 to agree with the police bureau that the officer didn't violate the rules, even though the rules explicitly prohibited what he admitted to doing. Keep your eyes and ears open. The whole review board process is currently being examined by a consultant, and if you have had any contact with the IPR, you should connect with her. Her report's scheduled to come out in January of 2008. This final show came out about a year after the event was taped. It's a forum on 9/11 5 years later. You'll recognize one of the panelists, but the others include a woman whose brother-in-law lost his life in the Pentagon on 9/11 in 2001, an Afghan-American who visits his home country frequently trying to rebuild its infrastructure, the legislative director of the Oregon ACLU, and a Somali immigrant who talks about the Real ID Act and some of its more ridiculous provisions. I really have to thank Jim Lockhart, one of our associates who taped this event back then. It's amazing and somewhat sad how little changed between the 5th and 6th anniversaries of 9/11. This show and the forum focus on U.S. foreign and domestic policy in the aftermath of 9/11.
And the 4 of us went along with Medea Benjamin and Marla Ruzicka to Kabul, Afghanistan in January of 2001 to see what we could do to bring some attention to Afghan civilian casualties and to raise the issue in the U.S. of what exactly our response was doing. A lot of people said, well, we're bombing the terrorists. Well, in fact, as I'm sure many of you in this room know, we were not bombing the terrorists. We were bombing average people going about their daily lives.
But in terms of delivering goods and services to the people or providing peace, security, etc., there's almost no government. The government itself depends on the internationals. So you can say that there's a symbolic government, but not a substantive government. The government there is considered to be, by Transparency International, is the second most corrupt government in the world. Yes, who is first? Iraq.
I heard a newscast on the radio yesterday that said Americans were planning to dig a trench around Baghdad to prevent it from attack. The U.S. continues its work on the largest embassy in the world, which is behind reinforced concrete walls in the so-called green zone. There isn't a trench deep enough, a wall high enough, or a river wide enough to prevent people from resisting an occupying power which is destroying their nation.
I want to highlight a few successes in the midst of all these setbacks. Number one, conservatives joined the ACLU in the fight. Prominent conservatives and conservative organizations have joined the ACLU and all of us to fight to keep this country safe and free. And as part of the collaboration, just one group, Patriots to Restore Checks and Balances, was launched as an alliance of conservative and progressives. Clearly, more needs to be done, but we cannot rely on the courts and Congress, so grassroots efforts to reform need to be bipartisan.
The Real ID Act, after it becomes effective in 2007, it will require an asylee, someone who is seeking an asylum in the United States, to prove that people who are put in jail when they were in their country, that if they torture, that they have to prove that they've been tortured and have evidence from their people who tortured them, that the reason that they torture is because their political affiliation or social groups or so forth.
That wraps it up for the 16th Busiversary. I'm PC Peri, and I hope you got a sense of our group by watching the clips and hearing from our members and some of the people working on the show.
If you want to work with us or support us in any way, you can call us at 503-239-7456 or 503-321-5051. Our email is ffvc@flyingfocus.org, and that's also good for our website, which is www.flyingfocus.org, where you can find out more about the group and watch some of the clips that are like the ones that you saw on tonight's show.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to tune in every week for the slots that contain the Flying Focus video bus. And don't forget, you can be behind the camera, and you should. See you in the action, please.